are live with Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, here we are. We're playing around with live, so if for whatever reason I am monitoring it, I'm trying to make sure that it is good to go.
We have to have our chat feature enabled.
The chat's up. I have chat up.
Oh, hey, we got people.
We got people in there. So so again, bear with us as we play around with this. We use different things. This is new. We're trying to hone it before the tampering period on March 10th begins. So yeah, here we go. So Eric, first off, while I still keep an eye on over here, I'm just checking on something.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, let's start. Let's
talk about
things have changed.
Right,
what do you got?
I got my Sapporo and I told my wife, I said, you got to keep them coming tonight because here we go.
So I've got Edmunds O's Comfy Armchair Brown Ale. It's a product out of Charleston, South Carolina.
What is it again?
It's called a Edmunds Oast Brew Comfy Armchair Brown Ale. I have another one, apple cider donut. It's sitting on ice waiting until I finish this one. I assume we're going to need it after today. Today was a kick in the pants, I think, for some of us. Others
I know you're going to be more
up.
upset than I'm going to be upset, but I even see we got one of our moderators in the chat room. Very cool. So don't worry, I'm not going to dox you. We have a lot to talk about, and I think we should start off with.
And we are live. I've double checked. We are good to go. We are live on YouTube, so we're good.
We are live. I think we should react to this first, which was.
Look, I mean, I'm all for people getting as much leverage as they possibly can. Matt Stafford can't seriously want to go to the Giants. I don't mean this as disrespectfully as that sounds, but I mean, Field Yates kind of brought up some of the options. You're going to a wind tunnel behind a terrible offensive line on a team that was just awful last year, where the coach and the general manager's careers are basically hanging by a thread in that market. They're in a ridiculously competitive division. I'm all for trying to drum up leverage, but if you're Matt Stafford, that can't possibly be right now anywhere near the top of your list, can it?
No way I would want to play for the New York Football Giants. The New York Football Giants are a disaster. We've seen what happened this past year, obviously, with Saquon Barkley, them moving off of Saquon Barkley, he going on to win the Super Bowl. The disaster that was Daniel Jones. They can't protect the quarterback. And oh, by the way, the front office and coach are barely hanging on as it is. So if you go out there, you're Matt Stafford playing outdoors in the NFC East with all that type of inclement weather. What happens if things doesn't roll your way? That whole regime could be out. Then you could be in a situation where you got a whole new regime coming in. I don't want any part of that instability if I'm Matthew Stafford.
Wow. Ouch. 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 So, again, this sucks. I want to say F you, Damian Woody, but you can't really argue with what he said. So, I mean, I know you have a different take.
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's an interesting take. Starting with Mike Greenberg, your Jets suck. So what are you? The Giants are so bad that the Jets still have a worse record over the last 10 years. So shut the hell up. First off, I mean, this whole thing is like the offensive line. The offensive line was injured towards the end of the year. It actually wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad in the beginning
of the year, and things came, just fell off the rails. We know that, but this idea, like, okay, but if Stafford was going to the Jets, would you have been telling us this would have been great? This would have been. Damian Woody is a Patriot through and through, and guess what? You're 0-2 against the Giants in the Super Bowl. Just saying.
Yeah, I know. So but we had to play it. So that's the lead in because all right. So that was what 48 hours ago, 24 hours ago. So first of all, kudos to you. You thought this would come to a head during the combine, and you were right. I thought it would be later than that, but you were right. I thought it'd be closer to free agency, but you've been calling it that this was going to get resolved probably this week, and you ended up being 100% correct about that. Not to pat myself on the back because it has nothing to do with me. The people that were talking to me, all four of them, again, John C. didn't contact me directly. He said it on the site, so that he was the fifth. But the four people that contacted me who told me this was going on, who broke the story before the media did. Kudos to all of you guys because you broke this story. And So that was kind of cool. That was sort of reminiscent of the old days when BBI was sort of breaking stories back in the day. So it happened. They tried to trade for him before the deadline last year. That was confirmed by Paul Schwartz this week. Paul Schwartz came out and said the Giants did try to get him last October, which I was told. And then everybody reported this week that the Giants were making not just a push, but a major, major push, both money and maybe draft compensation. We still don't know what they were offering in terms of draft compensation.
Right.
But what it does look like is what I but subsequently feared. And I tweeted out and wrote on the thing that I was afraid that he was using the Giants for leverage. And that's what it looks like to me. They might say, no, it was always a possibility, but I think Stafford and the Rams were using the other teams to create his market value. If somebody can prove otherwise or thinks otherwise, that's fine. But I don't, now looking at what's happened, I don't think he was really on the market. I think this was just a charade. My guess is not that the Giants' interest was a charade. I think the Giants really wanted him, but I think it's a charade that they were offering him.
I think we'll know for sure kind of how real, because there's three parties involved. There's the other teams, which I count as one party, the other teams, the Rams, and then there's Stafford himself, right? So he has his own interests about, what he's doing. I wonder if the numbers come out, even if they're a little lower with the Rams, and it depends on the years. So if you stretch it out a few years, because I did hear an inside Ram podcasting. I listened to what was going on about what they thought was happening. And Stafford had a big coming to Jesus meeting with Sean McVay 2 years ago. They were arguing over the contract right as training camp started. Locked in a room for a number of hours where they ultimately agreed that, they gave Stafford more guaranteed money, and ultimately that's how he had to play it out. Last year, he kind of waited a long time in the offseason before he decided to say, I'm coming back or I'm not coming back. That's why McVay made a point of saying, we would like to know sooner than later this time around of whether he was coming back. So it came down to dollars. I have a feeling that even if the Rams are a little less, he probably didn't want to up and move his family to New York. And I don't think Vegas really was the option that he wanted to choose. They have less weapons than the Giants have. I mean, at receiver, they've got nothing.
I think this was all a dog and pony show. I mean, again, I think you think there was more there than I do. Again, the Giants wanted him. We know that. We know.
Right.
And what's interesting is the specifics that I was told seem to be kind of in the ballpark. I was told 2 weeks ago the Giants were looking 2 years, $55 million per year, guaranteed. And I'm seeing that number was floating around today on Twitter. I don't remember if it was Dan Dugan or somebody.
Yeah, I did. I saw this. I saw the same thing.
So it was like, whoa, there's that 55 million figure. So, anyways, so the reason I played the clip, so all you guys don't get mad, and I want to answer some of these questions here. Like Sean Wilkes said, bitter Woody here. The reason I'm playing that is I think there is some merit to Damian Woody was saying in this sense. There was always this, why the hell would the Rams and Stafford want to separate because of given their performance in the playoffs? And you can make the argument that Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC. And you can make the argument that of all the teams in the playoffs, the Rams gave the Eagles the most fight. So why would you break that up? And why would not that Stafford would have control over coming to the Giants, but why would he even kind of really want to come to the Giants over the Rams? So
yeah. So there is that. I will say the thing with the Rams, and I listened to that the insider gave their kind of take on it. The Rams have a number of young players that will be coming due a contract in the near future, and they want to know really how much money are they going to commit to these other guys, and how long Stafford would actually be there. If they have to kind of hold on to this year, next year kind of deal, not knowing if he's going to be there, that was where some of the question became of, do we spend that kind of money on him and stuff like that? So it sounds like doesn't really matter. I think I think ultimately others and you ended up being right. It was more of a play on the dollars, but we both agree the Giants' interest was legitimate going back to the fall. They were interested, and who knows what things would have been for the Rams had they lost to the Vikings. It's quite possible they moved Stafford then because they had Kupp was injured, Nakua was injured at that point. That was a team that would have been going nowhere. They would have been 2-5 at that point, and they might have been trading people off. It's amazing what one game did to their season, the Giants of '97 or of 2007. You get one game, turns things around, all of a sudden you start rolling, and even in 2011.
But what we don't really know, again, we know the Giants reached out to the Rams in October. We don't know if the Rams were really seriously entertaining those offers. So, i.e., we know in the past that teams reach out to try to get Saquon Barkley, but the Giants weren't really interested in trading Saquon Barkley, which unfortunately things would have turned out better for us if they had done that. So the bigger question is this: the big picture is that there's so much. God damn, there's so much to talk about. And of all days, this is the day I try to start doing my tax return, which. I was trying to do that, and
I was just thinking that,
and follow what was going on, and I'm like, oh my god! All right, so the bigger news is this. Bigger is equal. Is everyone seems to be reporting now that the Giants, if they can't get Stafford, they're going to trade up to the number 1 pick and get the quarterback that they really, really, really want. And we don't know if that's true. I have not heard anything about that, but everybody else is reporting. Everyone's saying Giants are going to trade up the number 1. I've got some real issues with that. I can understand that. And I actually, and you're going to disagree with me on this, John. I am a little bit more comfortable with the Giants trading away capital to trade up and get their quarterback of the future and taking a shot there than I was them trading away significant capital to get Matthew Stafford. But I was always okay to get Stafford if they gave away like a 3rd-round pick.
Does it matter to you which one of the quarterbacks it is, though, that they trade up for? Or do you don't care if it's either one of them?
You're going to hate this answer. I don't know. The Giants don't know. The league doesn't know. So in a way, and everyone's going to hate this answer. Just take a shot. So no, it doesn't.
Yeah, okay.
If they think Shedeur, what I don't kind of want them to do. All right, I don't think that they're going to be in the situation. If they've got an equal grade on Shedeur and Cam, I'm staying put. I am. There's no way in hell I'm trading up because I'm pretty darn sure that one of those two is going to fall. Now I know you're going to say someone can trade up in front of us to get the other guy too, but like Cy said, if that happens, I'm trading back,
right?
And I take a quarterback later in the draft, and I'm doing this all over again next year. I'm still getting a vet in the free agency. So
that's
now, Aaron Rodgers is out there now. There's shit. There's so much to talk about. I don't even know where. But anyway, so I don't know. Do you want to start with the Aaron Rodgers, or do you want to start with the draft?
I feel like we kind of have to, and then get back to the draft. Only because, let's put it this way: if the Giants go through free agency and they basically just take a scrap heap guy, like there's just they grab Jacoby Brissett at the end. Sorry, Jacoby, I don't mean to call you a scrap heap guy, but you've been thrown around. Then you've got no choice. You've got to move up to 1 because you can't not get a quarterback. Because you can't count on that guy. If you're going to count on a guy, you're talking to Rodgers, a Cousins. We talked about Carr, so that was one of the questions that someone posted in here. Carr, from all intents and purposes at this point, the Saints have said they are keeping Carr, and it sounds like that's true.
Did they say that?
Yes, that for 25. For 25.
Who asked about Carr here? Because I want to give them kudos.
You went a little further back up.
Here it is. Wait a minute. Pete Moeller. Derek Carr trade.
Yes.
I wouldn't trade for him. I was hoping he would shake loose. And if they're playing hardball there, I'd still wait till they shake loose.
His contract would be really tough to trade. See, the problem with the Saints is if they get past a certain date, they accrue a roster bonus and all this other stuff, which is a huge part of Carr's contract. So trading him after the league year starts doesn't help them out at all with the piece. They would need to do it right. Like they have to really cut him if they're going to cut him. no one's going to trade for that contract, or they're going to have to eat it, or they're going to have to restructure it, or they do something down the road where they can play around with the numbers and whatever. But they basically said Carr is going to be their quarterback in 25. And it sounds like that was part of Moore's thing. And if you think about it, right, look how many teams are looking for quarterbacks. If I'm the Saints, and even though I have a humongous salary cap problem, how do I roll into the offseason with no quarterback? Taysom Hill's injured. So you basically got Spencer Rattler. So you'd have to sign somebody, but you don't have the cap space. That's
yeah, but they've got they're in a different position than the Giants because they have a coaching switch. They've got some time to play. The problem with rolling back Shane and Dable is they have a very short leash. That's one of the arguments for firing them would have been you can kind of punt this year. Like, again, for those who have missed it, size. And it's not that Cy knows everything, but Cy's recommendation was not a great quarterback group this year. Don't be stupid with the pick. If necessary, trade back this year so you can get your quarterback next year. They have the ammunition if he's assuming they're going to have a bad record anyway, but just in case, you can move up in a much deeper quarterback draft and take a quarterback later in this draft to go along with a free agent like a Justin Fields or a
Russell Wilson,
anything like that. So, but you're right, John. What they do in free agency is going to telegraph what they do in the draft.
Yeah, and so one more thing on the Saints, though, I don't think it's as simple as it sounds. Yes, they have a new coaching staff, but their salary cap is so bad that you can't just punt and have nobody. And they're not in a position to draft somebody. They would be getting the third guy in the first round, if that. So I think it sounds like Moore's deal as when he came in was kind of knowing I'm going to keep Carr. You're the new coach coming in. You don't usually talk about a guy that you're ultimately just going to get rid of as the guy that I can work with. And he said it more than once. The Saints came out and said he's going to be there in 25. So the organization made that statement. So I think he's off the table at this point in time.
I think that's a mistake. If I'm the Saints, I play Rattler and draft another quarterback to compete with him or bring in a cheaper veteran. But that if you've heard that, if that's what's out there, then Carr's off the table. So I think what we're looking at is, do you go more high-end name guy like Aaron Rodgers? Do you go try a reclamation project like the Pittsburgh guy, Justin Fields, or do you go really cheap backup veteran like Garoppolo and hope he can again redeem his career a little bit, something like that? I'm almost tempted to go Garoppolo, but I think it looks like they're going to make a play for Rodgers.
Well, I mean, we heard that, but we don't know that to be true. The first rumor that came out was that Rodgers reached out to the Giants. Then later it was said, well, wait, no, the Giants actually reached out to Rodgers.
Right.
Let's break them into tiers or into boxes. So you've got Rodgers, and we assume Cousins either via trade or being released is a possibility.
Right.
So we'll put Cousins in that group, and then Russell Wilson would be in that group. I can't think of anybody else that you would fit as a named guy that still has a lot of talent and proven talent. Those would be the three in that one tier. Then you move over, and now you've got a Fields. Because although he could fit the other group, he has not had the success as a passer that those other three have had. So you've got Fields, and you're kind of like, at that point, you're mixing in Garoppolo and Wentz. They're kind of there because they've done it before, just not in a while. And then you're really just after that, you're just anybody. You know, you're looking at a Marcus Mariota. You're looking at a Jacoby Brissett. So I think we're talking about one of the first two tiers. I got a feeling it's got to be one of the Rodgers, Cousins, Wilson group. But let's start there. If you're Russell Wilson, how do you feel about the fact that the Giants didn't really want to give you an opportunity last year?
I wouldn't make too much out of that unless there was bad blood when they left the meeting, and I doubt that. So things change on both ends in the league. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Cy has mentioned that him as a possibility. It was also interesting that Cy also mentioned that he tweeted out today Rodgers Ward saying, again, that's a lot like the Eli Manning, Kurt Warner scenario that happened in 2004. I rewatched Shane's press conference from, was it 2 days ago? 2 days ago. My head's spinning because of all the news. I came away from it more convinced than ever they're going to sign or trade for a veteran. He basically all but said that they're going to bring in a veteran for no other reason. And I want to address Shiloh Lawn just had a point that I want to raise. For no other reason is he wants somebody in the room to help mentor somebody they would draft. But he also repeatedly, he has said again, they want to have the roster set as if going into the draft as if they had to play a game already, so they don't feel like they've got to panic, which is a smart way to do this, as long as they don't do something really dumb in terms of trading away valuable assets for somebody. So Shiloh brought the question that I've thought about is Rodgers. Is Rodgers the type of guy you want mentoring a young quarterback? I don't know the answer to that because I don't really know the dynamic, behind the scenes dynamic of how Rodgers is in the quarterback room. But I've wondered that before too. Seems like Rodgers has got a lot of things going on. Love him or hate him, he's got a lot of other interests and things, talk shows and stuff like that. I don't know how he would be, but there are enough people are starting to say that, incredible people like Diana, is it Rossini?
Yep.
Rossini is saying, the Giants are reaching out to him. So I have to think that there's something there that they're looking. So I think Rodgers is in the equation. It would be more, it's more interesting to me that his name's even coming up associated with the Giants. And then no one's saying, no, the Giants are not looking at Rodgers.
The other piece to that I heard is that the Giants reached out to some of the former Jet coaches to ask about working with Rodgers. And what I read was they all gave a glowing review of working with Rodgers, that he was great behind the scenes, that he was great with the other players, that he was very into everything. So,
and that came from Connor Hughes. Connor Hughes is well known to BBI because he used to actually work for the site, but he's very much a Jets insider. He knows what the hell's going on with the Jets. Kind of pisses me off because I want him to cover the Giants more. If you're listening out there, Connor. So I believe that report. So again, I think the Giants, the bigger question here is this. It's what Bobby Skinner brought up today on Twitter. He said something that really resonated with me, and I know it's going to get a lot of negative reaction out there, but if the Giants were all in on Rodgers, how can they be all in on trading up for somebody in this draft?
You mean Stafford?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Stafford. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So many quarterbacks floating around.
Too many things.
Keep them track. So if they're all in on Stafford, how can they be all in on the quarterback? Because if they're really all in on the quarterback, you would think that they wouldn't be making such a huge push to get Stafford. And I can understand that. Now, I know there are going to be people out there that say that you can do both, and you can. But it just doesn't smell right to me. So it almost smells like panic to me. That's what I'm worried about. It smells like if we didn't get this guy, now we got to trade up at all costs to get whatever guy we want. So
it's hard to defend it and say that that's not true. Sorry, I had to change the lighting. I hated the way that
we're live.
Yes, you like that? It's like the Undertaker. I just raised the lights without even moving.
Yeah.
The problem that I have with that is we don't know what the Giants' plan was all along for the draft. For all we know, the Giants decided we're going to take a quarterback at 3. It's either going to be Sanders or it's going to be Ward, or Ward is going to be Sanders. But with the idea that we had Stafford already on board. If you don't have Stafford, now you have to guarantee that you're going to get one of those guys, which is why I feel a little weird about the Rodgers thing. If you go back, you remember you
were for Rodgers.
I mentioned Rodgers a while back as a possibility, and I still believe that I wanted Stafford because I felt like that's just a little bit more calm. It's Rodgers brings some other stuff, and you're always like, oh Jesus, what's going to happen? But you never know what he's going to say during the week. But as far as talent goes, they're not that far apart. It's just the age piece and the injury piece. But I think Rodgers would be more than capable, and he brings Adams with him. the problem is I don't know that the Giants, if the Giants felt like, I think they put all their eggs in a basket of like, we could get Stafford. You don't know that you can get Rodgers because you don't know that he wants to stay around here, and you don't know if he even wants to play for a team that might not be going after the Super Bowl.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know,
but they seem to be interested. They're doing their due diligence. One of the other.
I agreed.
Yeah.
But I think once you take the Stafford thing, made it so you don't have to move up. It doesn't matter if both quarterbacks go, because you then can take the best player and we'll draft one of the others. Now you have to. Now you've put yourself in the boat where you don't have a choice. So
but they wouldn't have drafted a quarterback at 3 if they had signed Matthew Stafford.
It depends on who it is they're interested in. If let's say for shits and giggles purposes that it's actually Ward, which is the weird thing because they seem way more kind of like fawning over Sanders. But let's say that they're interested in Ward, but they didn't expect him to be there. Kind of like they didn't expect Jaden Daniels to move from the Redskins. They knew the Commanders. Yeah. They knew he wasn't going to drop down. You got me on that one. So in this case, maybe you just assume Ward's not going to be there. They're like, he's just not going to be there. So now you would have to move up. But before, you would be okay with getting either one of them because we got Stafford. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because, quite frankly, everything that they've done is the opposite of what I thought was going to happen. Once the season ended, I didn't think everybody was coming back. I kind of felt like, okay. And then when the trade piece came back up again, I'm like, the mandate to win is driving everything. And I know some people don't like it. I want to win, and I think there's more than one way of accomplishing a goal, but they are putting everything in one basket right now. And it's either you better get Rodgers at this point or a Cousins if he comes free, but he's gonna cost you. If you have to trade for him, you can't.
I'm not trading. I
wouldn't either. I would not.
I'm
touch
not trading for Carr. I'm not. This is me. I'm not trading for anybody else right now. I was only okay with them trading for Stafford because of his age. If it didn't cost too much, I got into it a little bit on X friendly wise today in terms of. I just went where the Giants are in the NFC East vis-a-vis the Commanders, vis-a-vis the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think it makes sense for them to bring a 37-year-old quarterback if you have to give away significant draft capital. So I actually kind of feel, I know you don't, I feel a little relieved right now. I think Stafford would have made a big difference here. I think we could have been, like you've been saying, we could have been a borderline playoff team with him. But I worried about the sugar rush disappearing rapidly and then us being in the same boat next year or the year after when his contract is. I just want to just, again, everything.
I get it.
I know you do.
Yeah. I mean, I get how you feel about it. The one problem that I have with the theory, though, is this, and this is what everybody, David Gregory, you say 6 to 8 wins. I think it might have been more than that with Stafford, and I'll tell you why later, why I think that's important. But Stafford meant 3 means we can go up or we could go down. We could pick up more picks or we could move up and get. It doesn't matter. Because we would have the quarterback on hand and then that other guy, whatever he happens to be, the other quarterback for the future or a star player, we can get him. You trade picks to move up to 1. You don't have a main court. You really are just took whoever you could get. You're now moving up and now you've lost some of your other picks. So it's not that I don't understand it. It's that you've basically hamstrung yourself when it comes to the draft. We're screwed.
Do you remember what my worst case scenario was 2 months ago? It hasn't changed.
Yeah, basically we'd have no choice but to move up to get the guy.
And it feels like that train wreck is coming towards us. So my fear all along, again, is I don't have it out for Dable. I don't have it out for Shane, but they've caused their own wounds. They're self-inflicted wounds here. The Daniel Jones situation really put both their careers in jeopardy. And now that that's happened, it seems like everything that's happened to date is still moving towards that. They're going to feel like they have to move up to number 1. And I and others are saying you don't have to panic like that. Now, Shane and Dable may be panicking like that. But again, this isn't a quick fix with the Giants. There is a much better, deeper class next year. Let's not sabotage both drafts just to go get one guy this year. So the Giants are going to need much more than a quarterback. In other words, they're going to need. So if they can trade back, pick up another number one. This is what Cy was saying. Pick up another number one. Then they may or may not have to move up next year. But if they have to, now they have the ammunition. But they've acquired more. I heard somebody say today there is not much difference between the 10th pick in this draft and the 30th pick in this draft. Yeah. So
it's funny. I heard somebody else go, there's not much difference between the 20th and the 40th.
Okay.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I think they're all doing the same thing.
In a way, it's like maybe you want to move back anyways. So if the Giants were a contending team, you want the generational talent, and then obviously you'd want to look at Hunter, and you'd want to and you'd want to hope that Carter is there, do something like that. And I'd have a hard time passing on Carter. We have to talk about his foot. That's another thing that happened this week. So, but I'll be very nervous if the Giants come into the draft feeling that they've got to give away their second round draft pick, which is almost a 1, to move up 2 spots to pick a quarterback. And what if
and your second round next year is what I'm hearing. 2 2s.
Well, where did you see that?
It was I can't remember who I was listening to, but they're like, it's probably going to cost you. It's not a first. You won't have to give up a first next year, which other teams have done before. Very short drop,
right?
But it would be the second round pick this year and a second round pick next year. That's why I'm saying I don't want to do that. That's ridiculous for a guy that I'm not even sure about. But we may be in a boat that we don't have a choice.
If they pan out, it's worth the cost. It's worth the cost. But I just. If they felt that way, then why the hell were they trying to get Matthew? That was Bobby Skinner's point, and that again, it's hard to argue against that point. You know, if you were so sold on, and I know what you're saying, it gives you more leeway. But there are other veterans out there that you could have a little more insurance. Like,
well, we don't know what the cost to get Stafford would have been. We know what the dollars were.
Right.
We have an idea. But we don't know what the compensation would have been. They never really got to that point, as far as we know, of what the Rams would have wanted. The cost probably would be less. I doubt it would have been a 2. That's way too high for the amount of money you were going to have to pay.
If the Raiders are compeing with us for that.
But again, we don't know what the Raiders were going to offer either. For the amount of money that you have to deal with,
right?
Now, the Raiders had more cap space than we did, but that's a whole different story. So I'm not sure about that. See where Bobby, I feel, is wrong in his theory is if you have Stafford, then assuming we didn't give up a 2, let's say it was a 3 and a 3 next year, a 3 and a conditional 3, I could move down or I could move up. I don't have to move up to get the quarterback. But now you're kind of stuck that you have to, because you can't assume both guys will make it to you. It's not that you don't have a conviction on either. It's that you go, I thought at least one of them would be there, and they're close enough. And now I'm worried. The rumor is that the Browns may actually go quarterback now. And that was something that before it didn't seem like they were going to. They might be kind of scrapping everything, especially if they get rid of Garrett. Then they'll probably go quarterback. Tennessee, you don't know what they're going to do. They seem to be holding all the cards. But now we're competing with the same teams, by the way. We're competing with the Raiders to possibly jump to 1. You've got the Jets who need to move up. They could move to 1. So, and then you've got Jacksonville, depending on what they want to do elsewhere. They don't need a quarterback, but they very easily could want a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter, and then they might want to move up. So we're in a really bad spot at the moment, unless we sign Rodgers and takes that pressure off, saying I don't have to move up.
See, I slightly disagree with this. I think the Giants aren't in a terrible position, but I'm afraid they think they're in a bad position. So if the Titans want to draft a quarterback, this changes. But it looks like the Titans don't want to draft a quarterback. And if they don't, I have a hard time seeing them wanting to really drop down past 3. So I got to think that they either want Carter or they want Hunter. And if they do that, if that's true, then the Giants have a lot more leverage than they may think they have. So, in other words,
but the Raiders have Max Crosby who wants out.
Okay,
so I'm just saying that's a possibility.
But see, this is where again, because I'm not Joe Shane and I'm not Brian Dable, and I don't really have skin in the game. It's easier for me to say that. My attitude would be like, if it doesn't fall that way, then I do it again next year. I know it's easy for me to say that, but I am not giving up number twos to move up 2 spots when I think there's a decent chance that one of those 2 quarterbacks will fall to me. Now this changes if the Giants really have a huge rating gap between the 2 quarterbacks. So if they're convinced Shedeur or Ward are way better than the other guy, then I can understand the motivation. And I know I've gotten a lot of people say, Eric, stop beating a dead horse, let it go. But that goddamn Colts win. And again, this is what I was afraid of when that happened. And people told me this week, God damn it, Eric, let it go. And I understand that because you don't want to. People don't want to hear that shit. But when it's still going to affect what we're doing this year and possibly next year, I'm like, what are you doing? So anyway, I gotta move past it.
Yeah, I hate those stupid things, and you know how I feel about that.
But I don't. But just imagine now if we have to give up two.
Well, no, I get that. I get that. But imagine if the Patriots didn't win on the last game of the season, they're ahead of us, so it doesn't matter. I mean, all this stuff, it's just weird. Yes, it was bad timing, but no offense. I mean, I still think the Giants kind of thought the Colts would win that game. I mean, didn't you get a feeling defensively? We were kind of just letting them throw the ball down the field, but our offense ultimately, yes. The one thing I'll say from all of that, I hate thinking that way because I know
it's the
I want to win games, and if you just lay down, it hasn't helped other teams just laying down. But that game didn't mean anything as far as changing culture. But what it did, though, and this is the part I don't like, and I think you'll agree. I think that's the game that saved Brian Dable's job.
Well, on the surface, it looks like it did because what happened between that week and the final week? Dable is told he's coming back, and then against the Eagles, the Giants sit the defensive starters. So they sat him in the last game, but they didn't sit him in week 16. So they sat him in the week before. They didn't sit him then, but they sat him later. So. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but again, you could see this train wreck coming since the Colts game, and I hope that's so. Let's get off that.
Duncan, hey, what if Pisarcik didn't fumble the ball? That's a good point. Who knows what would happen to the Giants organization?
Well, actually, it was a good thing for the Giants to play.
Ultimately, so real quick, let's finish before we get ton of draft talking and all that other stuff as we go. I want to stick to the free agent quarterbacks. So Rodgers, I kind of feel like he's got to be a target. I mean, he has to be. He's the next best available quarterback. But I don't know how they're going to try. I think they're going to say they're not going to give him a ton of money. They're not going to give him a long-term contract. Obviously, I would suspect it would be no more than it'd probably be a 2, when in reality it's a 1, and then that other year is a But the thing about it, remember, you get Rodgers, you're getting Devontae Adams. He's coming with wherever Rodgers goes, and now all of a sudden our offense looks pretty damn good overall, and assuming we have a young quarterback, there's no threat to have to play him right away. So I think for me, Rodgers, Wilson, once you get past Wilson, then I don't know. I don't want Fields. You might as well keep Daniel Jones if you're going to get Fields.
No, stop. No.
That's my point.
No.
He's worse of a passer than Jones
we just stopped the Daniel Jones threads. No.
He just runs better.
The worst thing ever in BBI history is the Daniel Jones threats. God damn it, no more.
I'm serious. Justin Fields is basically Daniel Jones if he got a tan.
Right, but again,
I'm just saying they're the same guy.
I'm not Justin Fields, but in a way, you can make the argument. Again, we always said this from the beginning. We said you either go established veteran route, sort of aging veteran. The Aaron Rodgers, the Carrs, because he became a value, the Matthew Staffords, those kinds of guys. They cut Kirk Cousins. We always said you either do that or you do the reclamation project. And Justin Fields is the very definition of the reclamation project, or the third option, which you've emphasized a lot, which I give you credit for, is that other tier of the Marcus Mariotas, the Garoppolos, that type of thing, just as a placeholder.
And a Carson Wentz. You got to
Wentz. So
you have to include him because he was a starter. He's a guy that they could go, okay, we could play him, and he could run around. So you get
right.
That's the only reason why. Not that he's good.
I don't have a problem now with the Giants signing a veteran free agent. I don't care who it is, and then drafting a guy. That looks like that's what they're going to do.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with Rodgers. 1 or 2 years, probably one. I try to. It can be
with avoidable year. With avoidable year. Yeah, with avoidable year.
Again, think Kurt Warner. So Kurt Warner, and then you draft Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And again, people out there who hate Shedeur, again, I'm not advocating for that. I'm not as down on him as other people are, but I just want them to take another swing at the fences here. Or what Cy recommended, which I don't think they're going to do, next year's you get your quarterback. So sign a Justin Fields, draft somebody like the Syracuse guy later in the draft, and then you trade back and you get your guy next year, the Nussmeyers or whoever's and you have the ammunition now to go wherever you want in that draft. When there's a lot more quarterbacks. I don't think they're going to do that route, but I think that route makes a lot of sense because I think there's a lot of needs on this team. But I don't think they're going to go that route. Everything we're hearing, it sounds like they're not going to go that route. So it sounds like they're going to get a veteran, and it's going to be, what are we? We're March 1st is tomorrow. So in the next 10 days, they're going to get a deal done with a quarterback, right?
Well, we're going to hear who they're kind of going after.
Right. But it's going to be done. It's going to be done by the 10th.
Well, it can't be.
Well, you know what I mean?
Because for Rodgers' purposes, he has not been released yet.
Right.
So, and that won't happen until the league year. They'll do it right before the start of the league year.
These guys talk behind the scenes all the time.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they're already poking around. They were already talking to the Jets, and the Jets have already said he's gone. So.
Oh no, that part is true. You're right. So I want to be careful on that. Yeah. But I think they're going to be a little less talking to him because of the fact that he hasn't officially been released. It was one thing to talk to Stafford because the Rams said, here, talk to him. You can't technically talk to Rodgers because he's not been released. He's part of the Jets organization until he's not. So they really can't tamper until the legal tampering. But we all know what's going to happen.
But according to Connor, the Giants officials are already talking to the Jets officials. So
talking to the former Jets.
Oh, I thought it was current Jets.
No, former Jet coaches.
Right. But they're talking. So we
know who they're interested in. I think the problem with knowing where you're going to go with some of those guys is just because it's not available just yet. But finishing the free agents, and then I want to talk about Ward and Sanders real quick because they were at the podiums today. So finishing with the free agency, I think we will hear for sure. One thing you can count on is that Jimmy Garoppolo probably is not going to re-sign unless he wants to be the backup to Stafford. Probably is not going to re-sign with the Rams now because he is a free agent, and they did just spend a bunch of money on Stafford. He's probably going to have opportunities with somebody else desperate for a quarterback. Keep in mind, even though I don't know if they get along or not, there is a possible connection between the Raiders with Brady. Maybe Brady reaches out, although I think he and Garoppolo kind of dislike each other. But there are other teams out there. The Steelers don't have a quarterback.
Right.
Neither one of the two guys they have right now are free agents. They haven't really indicated they're going anywhere. The Colts need somebody besides Richardson. They already said that.
Right.
They've got to bring somebody in to compete. So there's a lot of different things.
Dable also worked with Garoppolo in New England, though, too.
He did in New England. Exactly. Now, the other guy to keep an eye on is Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a guy that he's familiar with from Alabama. I'm not all for it, but I did bring him up. No. So you kind of have to look at those guys. Let's flip the script real quick.
But real quick, Mac Jones is another one of those reclamation project type things. So they're going to get a veteran. And my point was, again, my point is in the next 10 days.
Number 2.
Yeah. next 10 days. In the next 10 days, we're going to have a pretty darn good idea who that guy is going to be. I think we're going to know. I think it'll probably get leaked before the 10th.
Sure.
But at least by the 10th, we're going to know.
And is it Alchemic color? You are absolutely correct. If
we got a lot of questions. Damn.
Dayball and Shane cannot survive without winning games, and you can't win games if you're not
yeah.
throwing the ball. So they're going to have to. Before we do Warden Sanders, really one of the things that I think, if you want to talk about things that are now in retrospect is bad, is the 22 season, and I mean not for the Giants organization and what they did, specifically for Daboll and Shane. And the reason being is this: they sat down, I'm sure, when they met with Mara at the end of the year and said, "Hey, what happened to Coach of the Year? And you won games. The guy you told me, you can't win with, you won games back then. We had less of a roster, even though, you could say based on the record that it wasn't as good. I personally believe the roster of 24 was better than the roster of 22. The results sucked, but we had a much better offensive line in 24. Overall, we were healthier.
Weapons,
defense. I mean, if you put Malik Neighbors on the 22 team, holy shit, we would have been.
Our middle linebacker that year was Tay Crowder.
Yeah, exactly. So, there were some other pieces but overall, that was a better team. You got to bet that Mara's going, don't give me any shit that you can't win games with. You figure out how to win with. You've got better talent. Go get some more talent. But you're going to have to win games. I'm not going to accept you not winning games. So this is it. You got to win. That's the edict. And you said right from the get-go, the worst thing about bringing them back is they were going to have to make decisions that are in the short term. But you know what? I don't care that they have to make decisions in the short term as long as you're not sinking the entire team. And how can you sink it? We can't get any lower than we already are.
It can always get worse.
It can't. We already suck. We already had expectations to be better, and we didn't. So right now, nobody has any expectations. So at worst, you're just going to meet the current no expectation of anybody else who's not a Giant fan with a bleeding.
Yeah, I just see so many. It's like we were on and if they're listening, we were just on that great podcast, New York Giants Rush. And Craig said for the first time since he's been going to the Giants, he didn't go to he missed a Giants game this year. And, people are down, really, really, really down. And I can see it in the website traffic. I can see it in the interactions in social media, not just on BBI and on Twitter, but also on other sites and stuff. And people are understandably, they're really down on this team. And so there's pressure on Mara too, to fix this. Desperate people do desperate things. I'm just worried that they'll make and to sort of circle back to what you just said. It's also interesting that Shane said this week, he admitted at the podium that they made a mistake in that offseason after 2022. He said they misjudged the situation. And I don't know if you picked it up, but he came out, we all know it, but he came out and said the quarterback play they've had has not been good. So he came out and said it. I mean, that's the first time I've heard them basically say Daniel Jones stunk. He said it at the podium this week. He didn't say those words, but he implied it by just saying we have not been good enough at quarterback, and they know it. So we've got that going for us. There's some. So let's set this up, because this is what I want to find out if everyone agrees with this. This is another clip that I saw.
I know. Hold on. I'm sorry, Will. I have a thing with my wife. My wife will make statements, and I'll be like, "Please, do not say that." You're literally asking, you're asking the universe to go, "Oh yeah, really? Okay." And I know I just did that it can't get worse. I'm sorry. My bad. I know. I
say the same thing to my wife. She does that. All right. Watch this. I saw this yesterday.
Now, there's pressure for everybody in the National Football League and front offices when it comes time to evaluating players. But if there is currently a National Football League leader you got to get this pick right. Certainly in the top 10 of the draft. You think Joe Shane is number one in that clubhouse right now? Number 3 overall pick. You better get this pick right. That this is a franchise saver, a gig saver.
Yeah, no question.
Conversation right now.
I mean, I think he's right. I know his loyalties are with the Jets as well too, but I think he's right. The pressure to get this pick after what happened with Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, Deontay Banks, the fact that they messed up the quarterback situation. They cannot get this pick wrong, or they're done. They're done. Don't you think? I mean, do you think that's a fair statement? This is it.
Yeah, I mean, well, minus their free agency, signing just taking off and leading them, but I mean, someone made a point, and I feel bad that I can't remember who did it on X, but basically said, there's a good possibility that the Giants don't extend or don't do a second contract with Neal or Thibodeau.
Right.
That they could walk away from those. And then the next draft was pretty forgettable overall. And that you're living off from a draft where you're talking about mid-tier guys and just roster fillers because your roster's so empty. So that's a very valid point. We're talking about how good last year's draft was,
right?
But we're doing it, and it's a thing that I've said before. I use it constantly elsewhere, so I'll get to that point in a second. But you did it in a year in which we're not very good. So were those guys? Did we hit on our picks, or did we just not have much there to begin with? Because Newman didn't do much. He started, but he didn't do much. Phillips got injured and he showed a little, but we can't guarantee that he's going to be great.
Right.
Overall, I mean, neighbors is neighbors, so sure. But I would also argue the point that Brian Thomas was way better overall. His impact was much better. Now, you could say he had Trevor Lawrence, and maybe that's why. He didn't have him for the whole year. But again, the point is, can we definitely say Shane hit a home run? Because he's hit some whiffs. Now, what I will argue with people about is some of the whiffs I don't really blame him for. You could argue Neal as a right tackle at 7, you probably could have gone a different position. But as far as who it was, the consensus was Neal was one of the best.
That's a head scratcher. That is such a head scratcher. I mean, again, that shows you that there is no sure thing in the draft, because he was as sure a thing as there was in that draft. As an offensive lineman, everybody, everybody had him top 3. They did. And if we fell to 5 to the Giants, it was like, or 7 to the Giants, it was like everybody on the website was celebrating that night. They were like, oh my God, I can't believe, because they were mad that we passed over them. I challenge people to go back and look at that draft thread. They were like, hooray, we got Thibodeau. How could you pass on Neal, and then we still got Neal?
One good point to make is for something you just said a little while ago. You don't really want to spend the draft picks to move up, but if you get your guy, then you got your guy. And 2004 is a great example of that. We traded picks. We traded next year's picks, 2005.
Right.
We traded, I believe it was a 1 and a 3 the following year that we gave away.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I'm pretty sure it was. But that draft, if you go back and look in 05, we ended up getting some decent players with only
that was a really good draft for us.
Yeah.
With very few picks. That was a really good draft for us. Yeah.
So if you hit your pick with the quarterback, it solves a lot. So let me ask you this. I don't know if you saw the actual videos of the 2 quarterbacks at the podium today, but you saw some of the transcripts. I tried to move as much as I could over as it was happening.
I was doing my taxes.
Oh, yeah. Man.
I saw some of it.
That's all right. I saw some of it. You won't get a deduction for doing that.
No.
So, Shedeur Sanders, a lot of people said a lot about his confidence, borderline arrogance, and that's fine. I kind of want that. The Giants have had no identity whatsoever in so long. Be arrogant, just don't be shitty.
Dare we say some dog? Does he have some?
No,
dog?
let's not do that. But I have one concern, and I'm curious. I want to know what the chat folks think. I want to know what you think. My concern.
We got a lot of input here.
Yeah, I'm paying attention. It seems pretty good.
Okay.
They're commenting, and here's my concern. When they asked Shedeur a number of questions, one of the things he said is, "Are you worried about?" He's like, "No. History's proven." He goes, "I've proven it before. Jackson State, Colorado, they were losing organizations. I show up and they win. History's going to repeat itself." That's what he said. he also, when asked about Cam Ward, he goes, "I'm not here to talk about anybody but me." Essentially, I'm paraphrasing.
I don't have problems. I don't have problems.
But Cam Ward had no problem giving some props to Shedeur and made. Again, I'm not knocking him for that. Right. I'm just saying. My problem with Shedeur is this. He didn't have a problem throwing his offensive line under the bus last year. When they lost to Nebraska,
we talked about that before.
He threw him under the bus. So, and I don't want it. We try to make this an overall Giants show, not just a BBI show. But I'm going to use somebody, and he loves hearing his name. So Go Terps makes a point, and I'm not knocking him. He makes a valid point. If they don't work out, you just move on, draft a different guy.
Right.
Shedeur brings a different piece, though. He brings the Sanders name. He brings his dad. He brings this persona. And if you struggles, how much of the struggles are going to be the organization and not him? And how hard would it be for the Giants to move on from that, knowing, because we know Mara doesn't like negative press. He doesn't like a negative look. He could easily turn. We saw it with Jones. He could easily turn and go, let's get rid of the coaching staff. Let's get rid of the GM. Yeah. We got to it's not Shedeur's fault. And when you have somebody like his dad kind of talking it up and whatever, I just feel like keep that in mind. There's a lot of extra pressure that comes with him.
You already mapped this out in the previous episode. Dable gets fired. Shane gets fired. Prime time becomes the head coach of the New York Giants.
Don't knock it. I don't want it. But don't
My wife hates prime time, so I've been going prime time.
Jesus.
All Giants fans hate prime time. But look, it's a valid concern, but we know really successful quarterbacks, like a younger Aaron Rodgers, who was kind of known for throwing his teammates under the bus, too, back in the day. All I care about right now at this point is I want the Giants to win. So yeah. It's a game. It's sport. It's supposed to be fun. Sometimes we make too much out of what this really is. We're basically rooting for jerseys. But the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl because I couldn't stand it, because I had a good feeling. I mean, I had a bad feeling that they were going to win, and I didn't want to see it. And so my wife's next to me. She's going, "Oh God," she's telling me what the score is. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
we got to get back to winning football games again. If Shedeur Sanders is the answer, I'm okay with it. If it's Cam Ward, I'm okay with it. If it's Jackson Dart or any other quarterback in this draft, I'm okay with it. But we got to get somebody. So, and it can't be just Garoppolo or Justin Fields or 41-year-old
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. It's got to be. We got to get somebody at some point, either this year or next year. They're going to draft somebody this year, don't you think? They're going to draft.
At some point, regardless. I mean, I think it's going to be first round no matter what.
Well, I think it's likely, but I won't go that far. I mean, I think they're going to feel like they have to, but
I think, yeah, I should backtrack. If they sign Rodgers, the pressure comes off. But I actually, quite frankly, I feel like the only thing that the pressure for me, so here's what I would do. If I'm in charge, this is what I'm doing. And then I'll ask, then you the same thing. So at this point, I am going after Rodgers. I mentioned this previously in other episodes. You confirmed that. That was one of the other guys I thought, but I felt like the trade for Stafford was more realistic, but I would sign Rodgers. So at this point, I'm trying to sign Rodgers. Yes, he has baggage. Yes, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a shit show if it goes bad, but who gives a shit? It's a shit show even regardless. But if it goes well, and keep in mind, okay, I'm going to say this again. Aaron Rodgers had 28 touchdown passes last year in a bad Jets season where their offensive line was not good and lots of injuries. And the Giants collectively have thrown 30 touchdown passes in the last 2 years. Rodgers had 28 in one season.
Right. So question for you and the viewers out there who think we're being too negative. I set this up too. Do you think Aaron Rodgers could work with this?
Very good getting in and out of his breaks.
If I can get it to work. Wait a minute. It says I've been
very good getting in and out of his breaks.
2 set of downs for the Giants. Catch made by Neighbors. He breaks free. Neighbors down the sideline. He's going to take this all the way. 59 yards. his second touchdown today.
With Wan'Dale Robinson, he's in the slot position right now.
Giants must get to the 36 for a first down. Block throws, it's Robinson. He was wide open, still going. Picks up a first down and a lot more. Finally tackled at the Colts 9-yard line.
They start from the 25. Jones is going to go deep. Got a man out there. And it is caught by the rookie, Jalen Hyatt. His first NFL catch.
Robinson. Jones down the middle of the field and open.
Boom.
Theo Johnson into the end zone for a touchdown. Well done, Theo Johnson. The rookie hangs on and takes it for 6.
Tracy to his left. Stutter steps. Cuts back right. Tyrone Tracy. Touchdown.
So the cupboard's not bare.
So I'll
cupboard's not bare, guys. It's not. People are going to disagree with me.
So,
if they have it. If Andrew Thomas stays healthy, big if, they get a right guard. They're not, and they get another wide receiver. They need a quarterback.
I'll say this. There were 2 things in that video that are just, they look like highlights, and they really should be used as why we need a new quarterback. The pass to Hyatt, if you have a better quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers has a gun, he's still at his age. It's not just, by the way, it's not just about how far and how hard you throw. It's the anticipation of the throw and the receiver making his break. Rodgers would let that ball go. As soon as he saw Hyatt making his break behind the safety, that ball's already in the air. Hyatt's going to, if you look back at that video again, Hyatt slows down for the catch. That's why the safety catches him. There's no way that the safety was going to catch him with the distance that Hyatt already had. If that ball was leading him, Rodgers would lead him. The pass to Johnson on the touchdown, go back and look at it again. Johnson has to almost turn back up and catch. If that's a little bit more just in front of it, it's an easy catch and walk into the end zone. Rodgers, and the one other piece that's not in any of those videos is on the other side is going to be Devontae Adams. That makes Malik Neighbors a major threat. What made the fact that Jamar Chase is so good is T. Higgins is on the other side. You cannot just eliminate one guy. You will get burned. And then when you do that, little Wan'Dale with a guy who throws it to him on target, so he doesn't have to reach up and get clobbered, doesn't have to. I mean, by the way, he's basically a gnome at wide receiver, and yet somehow he still had to dig passes out of the dirt because Daniel Jones couldn't hit the guy in the freaking numbers. So Rodgers will. And that's something that is just, I think, leads to wins when even the difference between really bad teams is very little. And you could bring that up. The bottom tier of the playoff teams, there's not a big gap between those guys. It's just a couple of games go the other way, and all of a sudden you're in the bottom tier of the playoffs. I know people might not want to hear that, and I'm sorry, but I don't care that you just seem to think it's Super Bowl or bust. It's not. You got to get in, and the Giants haven't even been winning.
Well, that's the thing. I don't want anybody out there to say that if the Giants get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be a really good team. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying they got enough people on this team not to be a 3-win team. So if they get decent quarterback play, and that's huge if. The other concern I have is defense. I've got a defensive clip coming up later in the show. Some good stuff, guys. So it's not all negative. But my concerns, other than quarterback, are actually more on defense. Do we have a good defensive coordinator?
Before we went to the video, so I said what I would do, and then I'm going to ask what you do. So I do want to sign Rodgers. I do draft a quarterback. I'm kind of up in the air, but I feel like I would like to stay at 3, and I'm hoping one of them comes down to me. If you're so afraid that they won't, then you do move up. Because like you said, if I hit it, if I hit it, because 26, you can talk about it, I can talk about it, and everybody in chat can talk about what they think the quarterback draft 26 is going to be.
Right.
We don't know that.
You don't know. You don't know.
You don't even know who's going to be there. You don't know what might happen to any of those players. NIL changes a lot, and I know some people say no, but it does. Carson Beck was expected. Go back to the video that we did after
the first-round draft pick.
After the Texans game, and we had Cy on, and we said, who is the guy? And he said, right now it's Carson Beck.
Right.
Carson Beck can make all the – Carson Beck would have been – I mean, he might still be the first guy if he had a good year. He wouldn't even be close to Ward or Sanders right now. He had a horrible year. So we don't know what's going to happen. You don't know for sure that Arch Manning comes out. Maybe he stays. Who knows? So if you hit your guy, I just don't know which one of them it is. I'm leaning towards.
Oh, sure you do. You think it's Ward?
I am, but there's something about Sanders in the way he talked today that while I see the problems it could bring, there's some swagger that this team just hasn't had. No, I want Ward. I want Ward.
I have the best wife in the world.
mine's out with friends right now. So I'm like, so I'm going to say this. I want Ward. So I'm going to assume I'm going to go with that. So I want Rodgers. I want Ward. I would like to see if they could move around depending on what you had to move up to 1, maybe drop back a little bit in 3 and pick up a little bit more. Defensive line in the draft is pretty thick. I want to go that way. I want to fill it. There's free agents we could talk about, but that's where I start quarterback-wise. I sign Rodgers, and I draft. I try to get Ward, but I'll take Sanders if I have to in the top 3.
Yeah, we have a lot of great questions, by the way. I want to get to these too, but I will comment on what you said first. I that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. So I was not 100% comfortable with this whole Matthew Stafford thing, and I think you knew that. And then the reason was, again, I think he would have been great for the short term, but I'm worried about the long term. I want to get the quarterback. I want to get our version of Jaden Daniels. Whether we can do that, I don't know, but that's what I want. I want our version of Jaden Daniels. Oh, great! You've got comments coming up. Did you just do that?
I did that. I did that.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did. I want our version of Jaden Daniels. So that's why I was kind of like, start trading away picks for 37-year-old quarterbacks, even though I knew he would do really well if he stayed healthy with this team. So right now I'm leaning, I've said this all along. I want to draft a quarterback to fix the problem. So if the quarterback is in this draft, if the Giants feel the quarterback is in this draft, I'm okay with them drafting the guy. And again, the last time I will say this, I promise. I'm just pissed off that they have to trade up to do something that they didn't have to do. So if they trade up for Ward or Shedeur, I would not be happy, but I understand it, and I'm much more willing to do that than trade away picks for Matthew Stafford, if that makes any sense. But I am really, really will throw a major fit if they give up next year's number 1 to move up. If they give up next year's number 1 draft pick to move up 2 spots, I'm gonna explode. So if we we're doing a live draft chat. Is that what we're doing? Or are we gonna be live on draft day? Wait, what? BetterHelp.com. Yes.
It's online therapy.
I will as soon as I get off this.
We are going to be live for the draft. We will be
so
live.
If you want to see Eric lose his shit, if the Giants draft up and take a quarterback by giving up number 1's next year's number 1, I will have a fit on that. So right now, I think the writing's kind of on the wall right now. I hate to say it. I shouldn't say hate to say it, but I think they're going to sign a veteran. It may be Rodgers. It may be if Cousins shakes.
Do you have a preference for the free agent vet? Who's your free agent vet you really would like them to get?
Well, I've got to operate under the assumption now that Carr's not going to be available. So my original thing was Carr from the very beginning because I thought Carr was going to be, but I'm not trading for Carr. So if Carr shook loose, I'd want Carr because to me that's kind of like Kerry Collins 2.0, and then you're just he's there until you get your Eli Manning. I've got to operate under the assumption that Cousins isn't shaking free yet. So until he shakes free, it's not Cousins. So right now, who is it but Rodgers, right? It's either that or Justin Fields.
Then you're going down in the tiers. Well, stop.
You know what I would do?
I don't want Justin Daniel Jones Fields. I don't want him.
You know what I would do? And I'm not a fan of him. I would probably do Garoppolo and I know you mentioned him before. Yeah. And the reason is I would say that is he's worked with Dable. They know each other, so there's not going to be any surprises. And again, I'm looking at a guy as a placeholder to support the guy you draft. So in other words, if I'm drafting Ward's starting at some point for me as a rookie, or Shedeur. If I'm drafting Shedeur or Ward, either one of those guys are starting for me at some point as a rookie. It might not be right away, just like Eli Manning in 2004. And then, so Garoppolo to me is just a placeholder until the guy's ready.
So I would say the answer to Paul, your question is Rodgers brings way more than Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's not even close. His baggage, forget that. The problem with Jimmy, by the way, keep in mind, is he's been injured a lot. And when he gets to play any kind of length, even with the 49ers, he was injured a ton. He missed a lot of games. And with the Giants the way they are, you don't want a guy who gets injured a lot. Right. Rodgers missed the one season with Achilles, but he's not a guy who gets injured a ton.
But in your scenario, you're assuming the Giants are going to draft a quarterback at 1, right?
I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So what if Garoppolo gets hurt? Because then here comes your rookie. He comes in.
Again, I get that, but the point of it is you still have to win games. So here's the thing, here's the problem, and you've highlighted this in the past. If you lose, and you lose badly, you lose a ton of games, Dayball's gone, Shane's gone. Now you've got a new regime coming in with a quarterback they didn't draft, and they're going, and especially if he had to play and he lost a bunch of those games. Now you're kind of, and I know other people would say that's fine, move on from him. But the problem is you sunk assets to get him, and now you're like, oh shit, we're moving on.
That's why I'm not giving away next year's number 1. But if we're going to be fair, it's more likely Mara, that's the only opinion that matters, is likely to give the Daboll an extra year if he feels the quarterback is on the upswing. So again, remember 2004, Eli was horrible, and it was only his last game against the Cowboys at home in the Meadowlands that left us with a really good feeling about the future about Eli. Up until that point, I mean, there was even a game in Baltimore where Eli had a 0.0 quarterback rating.
Oh my God!
You remember that game?
It was awful.
So he had a really good game against Pittsburgh, which we lost.
In a losing,
but much of the season he was terrible. And then he had that game last second win against the Cowboys at the end of the season, and that propelled us to win a division title the following year.
So may I make a point?
Yeah.
For all you watching and listening and all that good stuff, a meaningless win in a losing season meant a lot the next year. Just saying. So not every late season win. So losing would have got them a higher, we would have been a little bit higher. Winning meant everything. And I know
that wasn't my point, damn it.
I know, but I just want to throw that in there. You know what? Real quick, digging deep into memory, and I know I go back and that kind of stuff. You know what really bothered me about that Steelers game that they ended up losing? Because Eli played a really good game. Was the receiver Jamar Taylor that we had? I think it was Jamar Taylor.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And he was making deep downfield catches. But he had that knee issue coming in draft-wise. It acted up, and ultimately he couldn't go anywhere. And it sucked because you could see what he could have been.
Well, he's a good kick returner, too, wasn't he?
If he had just stayed healthy. But that just, too bad.
By the way, how are you getting these? That's great that you just hit the arrow button.
If you highlight over it and it says show on stream, so then you could just.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then
okay, guys.
Just click on it.
So we're working out the bugs here. So now we know we do this. We'll get your questions up on the screen. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
We're really good with technology.
Well, we'll pull back the curtain. Years ago, we did this. It was called Blog Talk Radio. There was no video. Eric and I didn't see each other. It was all audio. And then we kicked that off again when we started this back up in the summer. And we're like, well, wait a minute. Why don't everybody else their brother is doing videos? Why don't we do that? And I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. And we basically then recorded everything in Zoom, and then we put it up there. And we still do that when we record stuff, although we could technically do it here and do the same thing. but we want to try to do more live. We would like to do things more live. It just takes a little bit getting used to kind of getting to work right and finding the right one. We may not stick with this one forever, but for now we're going to. It works well, and thank you for who are going to be here. I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the tampering period that when we go live that noon. I took time off from work. I'm going to be available. Boom, we're going on noon that day. God damn it, the Giants better do something.
See, I just put that one up. They were 5-4, weren't they?
They were 5-4 through 9 games. Yes.
Right. And then they benched him. They benched Warner. He was fumbling. He had a fumble issue.
Yeah,
right?
he was struggling.
He wasn't happy. Warner was not happy when they
was it the Falcons or the Bears that Eli played first? I think it was the Falcons, but don't quote me on that. Yes, it was the Falcons.
I think it was the Falcons.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes. And the Giants were in that game. It was a low-scoring game. I think Eli threw an interception at some point.
We had that linebacker for 1 year that had a good game, and I can't remember his name, but that's going back. We have to do a thing. Someday we have to do a live stream with everybody chatting and reminiscing about like the Tom Coughlin years, something like that.
Bring it back to the 80s. I can nail anything from the 80s. No problem.
Yeah, I know, but we got a lot of younger people.
That's true. That's true. Hey, shut up.
I'm actually going back through. There's a lot of great questions here, guys. I'm sorry we didn't do this earlier. Yeah, it was the Falcons.
Neil, you're 100% right. Warner has had an issue with the Giants ever since. He's been pissed off about that.
Yeah. And I saw some earlier. All right, so we did that. So the questions we also have, John, are also, if I can get this, if I can get on video here.
Gino and Dexter Lawrence ends it. The 7th sack today by the Giants defense.
All kidding aside, they're about 5 yards away from having a shot within his range.
Oh, yeah. And now they're a lot farther. That's Thibodeau.
All 3 occasions, and again here today. Now Watson hit from behind. Ball comes loose. Giants have it. Their 4th sack.
For Hurts on 3rd down 10. Extra rush. And Hurts is going to go down. Sacked inside the 25 by Burns.
2nd down and 7. Watson under pressure. Sacked for the 2nd time. Micah McFadden along with Bobby Okereke.
Giants front has been stout today against the run. Toss play. Miller to the edge. Micah McFadden slams the door on Kendre Miller.
So when I was just putting together a few of those clips, it was interesting how many times earlier, especially early in the season, we were getting to the quarterback. You heard it, 7th sack for the Giants today, 4th sack for the Giants today. So it was kind of really Jekyll and Hyde with our pass rush throughout the year. And then our big problem was we couldn't get any interceptions. I don't know what was going on in the secondary, but none of our cornerbacks could get their hands on the ball this year. So that was odd. And of course, we've talked about this a long time. The run defense continues to be an issue. And what was kind of weird is, and I know you've brought this up before, that you be careful you don't make too much out of stats improving once you're in a losing season.
Correct.
Once Dexter Lawrence went down, the run defense seemed to stabilize a little bit too. So my big concern right now with the defense, other than adding more talent, we know we need a defensive tackle. We know we need help at corner. We may need another safety depending on what happens in free agency. But is Shane Bowens does he know what he's doing? Can he get this to be a top 15 defense against the run? And so we have the weapons to rush the passer, to be more consistent rushing the passer. So that's my big concern other than quarterback is, if we went into the season knowing that our defense was better, I'd be feeling better. But once again, we're down to the bottom of defensive rankings again.
Well, one of the biggest problems with how we treat free agency, right?
Right.
Usually teams that are good use free agency to get that piece to the puzzle that's really going to kind of elevate where they are.
Right, like the Eagles did.
But the Giants have to use free agency to fill massive holes.
Because they screwed up in the draft.
So right now, cornerback is a major hole. And then we were already seeing that the Giants, and we heard that Sy said this would be his guy that he would kind of look to. Now we're hearing that the Giants have an interest in Byron Murphy. He's going to be expensive. I don't think he's going to be so easy to get. But you don't need just one corner. You need two because you don't know what the hell's happening with Banks.
You at least need to draft a corner because of Banks. They need to sign a corner, and they need to draft another outside corner as insurance against Banks having a problem. So they need two.
The depth of defensive line in the draft, especially interior, from all that I've heard, and I try to share,
really good.
It goes, you can find quality guys into day 3. So the Giants need to concentrate on, you got to get a corner. I don't think you can count on the draft one, especially if we give up a pick to move up to get a quarterback. Now your picks are becoming less and the cornerbacks drop off. Now, one thing I will say, there are some corners depending on what we plan to do. Now, here's the question I have for you. The Giants defense has been a weird, it was Wink's defense, and then it was a hybrid of Wink's defense last year.
Right.
What are we defensively? Does Bowen have his own defense? Are we going to get away from maybe the kind of play that was designed around Wink's setup? Because I can't tell when you have two edge guys, but they're not really defensive ends, but they're not really linebackers, then all the pressure comes on the two interior defensive linemen who essentially become the only defensive linemen to play the run. I don't know what our defense is, but starting back in the secondary, we clearly need depth. And I think you got to sign somebody at corner. We're going to have to draft defensive line. I think you're going to have to get 2. And I'm just curious, your thoughts on the defense. Where do you see us kind of going free agency?
Well, that's my question with Shane Bowen. I don't know what it is. So what's interesting, they fired both their secondary coaches. So Jerome Henderson had a very good reputation, not just with the current staff, but, Wink came here because one of the reasons Wink came here is he really liked Jerome Henderson, and Jerome got hired by the Colts. So there was obviously some sort of disconnect. And remember, they promoted Jerome Henderson last offseason. They made him also the defensive passing game coordinator. So there was something that the Giants, they either scapegoated him, or there was something going on where they felt they needed to make a change. And, the obvious connection, which Dan Dugan has made, is that there was a negative impact on Deonte Banks somehow. So we'll see. We'll see if that's a factor or not. But you're asking me a question I can't answer because I don't know what changes are going to occur in this offseason. So there's going to be changes because they switched coaches in the back end already. So
right.
You're asking a question I can't answer.
But I think sure I say for sure we are going to attempt to sign at least one cornerback. We have to. You can't go in. Oh yeah. You can't go to the draft with basically a massive hole at right corner, knowing that Banks is really, he's questionable as a number 1. He's really a 2 at this moment based on his play, and he might not even make the team a year from now if he plays another season as bad as last year. You got to hope that there was something else going on. I know people like to talk about the win rate, and they like to talk about how close he was and an average of separation. He just needs to play the ball better. I don't care. He didn't play the ball. And I made the joke on the show we were on, Big Blue Rush. Thank you guys for having us on. And I meant it, is that he basically is the tin man out there. He played without a heart. He wasn't very physical when he had opportunities. He gave up on a number of plays, and he lets a lot of passes happen. Now, could it be that he just was completely not in the system he needed to be in anymore, and he's lost? Sometimes guys who are instinctive are really good as long as you let them be instinctive. But if they got to be thinking corners, all of a sudden that's a whole different game. LT would have been a different linebacker if he had to be a thinking guy all the time. He was.
They say that all the time with LT. They said he said he didn't know where he was supposed to line up. The thing that was alarming about Banks, and I'm not ready to give up on Banks yet, How's the beer holding up?
I'm almost at the end of the second one.
Where the hell? Speaking of beer, where the hell was I? What were we just talking about? Oh, Banks.
Banks.
So the thing that was disturbing about Banks, and I have not given up on him, is they called him out for dogging it, and then a couple of weeks later, he did it again. You know, it was and that's when they had to sort of quasi bench him. He was like, they sat him for like, I think, half a game.
Well, and they yanked him. They yanked him in that Steelers game at a point where it was kind of hard to tell if he actually had done something wrong versus somebody else. And it was a weird timing based on where it was. So obviously he was on a short leash at that point.
Yes. And I think there was an odd comment after that game. I mean, and when I say after, I mean like during the week, that they may have looked at the tape and he wasn't to blame for what he might have been benched for. I don't know. There was the whole thing was a little bit odd. So long story short is this: if Evan Neal was what he was supposed to be, if Jalen Hyatt is what he was supposed to be, if Deonte Banks was what he was supposed to be, we could go on and on. Our needs wouldn't be what they are right now. So if we had, these guys were the players we had hoped, we wouldn't be going, we need to fill this hole, we need to help. And that's what you were talking about in free agency. We're not the kind of team that signs free agents to put us over the hump. We're the team that signs free agents because we screwed up in the draft. So if you're confident in Evan Neal at right guard,
which they won't even say they're going to even practice him at.
Right. But if you're confident in him at right guard, we probably don't have to sign a right guard in free agency. But right now, we're probably going to sign a right guard in free agency because the 7th overall pick in the draft might not even be able to handle right guard. That's where we're at right now, right?
Yeah, and I want to ask you something specifically about that. We've got management, Joe Schoen. So let's just say Joe Schoen. I know there's a bunch of other people that involved Maris, but let's just say Joe Schoen. And then you have Daboll, the coach. They came in together. How much of it, do you think there is a friction between Schoen going and getting guys and then Daboll getting them, and then Hyatt doesn't see the field this whole set, and I'm not saying he should. So I'm not saying I saw anything that says he should. But if I'm Schoen, I'm going, what the hell? Like, what's going on here with these guys? I keep giving you guys, and then they're not playing. How much of it do you think is really kind of between the two of them, just loggerheads at this point, or do you think lock and step they're tied together? Because I'm getting the weird feeling that Schoen is Schoen and Daboll is Daboll, and they are not completely together.
I'm trying to find the question. I think it was from Neil earlier. Is there friction between Neil? If you're out there, I know you're still out there. Didn't you ask earlier if there's friction between Schoen and Daboll? If you didn't, I apologize. By the way, Jeff's from Georgia. Hey, Jeff, good to see you out there. I don't know, but I wondered it this year in terms of. When we were talking earlier, when we knew Schoen was coming back, but we didn't know Daboll was coming back, and then we learned that there was a meeting where Daboll found out he was coming back, and Schoen sat in that meeting. You remember that,
correct?
Right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Right before
my reaction to that was at that time was like, geez, I wonder if there's some tension now, in the sense that Schoen's kind of been given a pass, but Daboll hasn't. So I got to think that they're. Look, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but I got to think that there's got to be everything's not rosy right now. Maybe they didn't get Christmas cards to each other right now. And that's
because Daboll I have been on record as saying I was okay with Schoen coming back. I didn't want Daboll to come back. And I know other people think that, Schoen is completely sucked at his job too. And I can't argue that per se. I just feel like he's what I saw in Hard Knocks, where he really laid out the draft scenarios. He had that pegged on how things were going to go.
Yeah, he did. To his credit, he did.
Yeah. Whether you agree that the Giants should have drafted a quarterback instead of Neighbors, that's That's neither here nor there. He laid out exactly what he saw was going to happen, and this is what we need to consider, and this is what we need to do. And they were way more on Bowers than I thought they would have been based on what they were doing. But Bowers was right there. They were all kind of – he had it pegged out. I think
and he predicted what was going to happen in the second round. The picks that they were looking at were the ones that went.
And his draft picks, they have – some of them have failed, but they were expected to be good players. So that's – I don't know that that's on him. Daboll, on the other hand, you put the freaking bullseye on your back when you took over play calling last year, and the
yes,
offense,
he did.
And the offense was freaking worse. It was worse because not just did you take it on, but he was arrogant about it. He was really arrogant about the way, kind of just the way he talks and the way he does stuff. And your offense sucked. And you and I both talked about it. You keep coming out and you'd be like, he would say this, the quarterback gives us the best chance to win, but he would never say him by name. He kept saying the quarterback gives us the best chance to win. That's what we're playing about it. But you could tell, I'm thinking, how do you say that when you lost to a Cowboys team and they barely put up any points? You lost to a Bengals team that did nothing for most of the game, minus one long run by Joe Burrow. It was on freaking Lamar Jackson. It was Joe Burrow. And yet you lost those games.
I forgot about that play.
Because you can't fucking score. So you as the coach, you took that on and you were worse. That's where I have a problem. That's why
remember the owner called him out on that. He basically said it seems
you're right.
The owner basically said, do we really want him calling plays again? And I'm paraphrasing, but do we really want Dave call? So it'd be interesting who's going to be calling the plays. I don't know if I would say he was arrogant, but it certainly backfired on him. It didn't go the way I think there was an expectation by him. Why wouldn't there be that things were going to drastically change? And if anything, I think it's wait. If Daboll throws Surface Pro,
I don't think that would go over very well if that happened.
I actually got somebody tweeted that at me. Oh, it might be Stephen Kaufman. Somebody tweeted that at me too. And Neil asked too. Neil asked this, somewhat related. That's a great question. The only thing I'll say is if they're poking around Aaron Rodgers, if you believe Connor Hughes, and he's really plugged in with the Jets. He is plugged in with the Jets. If you believe him, the Giants, this is the way I'm thinking of it, if they really, really had no interest in Aaron Rodgers, we would know it by now. And the fact that it's going in
they would have shot it down. They would have
the other direction. Yeah. It tells me that this is their fallback plan.
One thing I will say about that, you can go back and look. I know you could do it, 10, 15, 8, 7, 6 years ago. Go back to last year alone and watch some of the Jets games, right? And they weren't great by any stretch of the imagination. But watch Rodgers when he comes to the line. He changes plays. He picks plays. He knows where to go. The one thing about Daboll that I think he absolutely effing hated is that he had Daniel Jones, who basically was locked into whatever play. If Jones changed out of a play, it was to call a run. It was basically to just change it to the run. It wasn't to change it to another pass. If they ever had to do a quick pass, a quick snap pass, it never happened as fast as you watch Aaron Rodgers do it. You watch Rodgers get it and just quickly throw it right over the middle.
Look, the question
Daboll will love a guy like that who can take his offense and make it work faster. The biggest problem that we had is everything was freaking methodical about what we had to do.
Look, Rodgers' questions marks are going to be the baggage, and as I freeze here, are going to be the baggage, and it's going to be does he physically still have it? But we're talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback who knows what the hell he's doing on the field. He knows what he's to do. He knows there's going to be no issue. He's going to be a surgeon out there if he can physically do it. And if the play, he'll give you gravitas. There's no one on that. There's no one on the New York Football Giants offensive team that won't look at him and go, we're playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback here. This is a guy that, he knows what he's doing. So he's going to bring that to the table. Whether he physically can still do it, he could physically still do it last year. We saw it. The 28 touchdown. What are you smiling at?
No. I did try. No. You'll see what I'm saying because then she won't believe that I actually did it. So that's fine.
Oh.
I told everybody I did. There we go. There we good.
So that's, to me, that's not the question. So I think if they're going to trade up for Ward or Shedeur, or they're going to stand pat and draft one of those two guys, Aaron Rodgers makes sense because you think he's going to be here a year. To me, that kind of makes sense. And that's probably the best bet at this point, unless you want to go way cheaper in, like I said earlier, a Garoppolo, or like you've mentioned, Carson Wentz. Okay, I'm not a.
But that's really, I mean, I'm saying it only because, Kerry Collins' reclamation project. I don't want Carson Wentz, but he's got.
No, I know what you're saying. There are no good answers left out there. So that's so. If I'm running the Giants, I think right now I'm drafting either Shedeur or Ward. Now the question is, do I stand pat or do I trade up? And that's a gamble. Like you said, I've said it from the very beginning. If you are playing musical chairs and you get left holding, and there's no chair, then they're toast. So that's why I think the pressure's on them to trade up, and the Titans know it. That's what I'm afraid of. So they're saying, hey, we got the Raiders talking to us, and they're willing to go next year's number one. You better do it too. And that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, and the other, you mentioned one of the problems, right, which with us being at 3 is Abdul Carter's foot issue became a problem for us at 3. The reason it also becomes a problem for us is that if there was a team just behind us that wanted Carter, they're like, they might have been thinking, we got to trade. We got to try to get up with Cleveland. We got to try to see if we can get in after, because we don't think Tennessee's going to go that route. We're going to try to get in with Cleveland. Now you're going to sit there and go, let him come to us. Let him come to us. We're the one team right now in the top 5 that actually has to do something with a specific position. We pretty much have to. Now, that gets alleviated if we sign Rodgers. If you get Cousins, I don't think that alleviates it much, because you are really hoping that Cousins can rebound. One thing about Rodgers, the biggest negative about Rodgers that you really have to worry about is the fact that he's 41 years old. Cousins, on the other hand, regressed horribly last year. You're hoping it was a combination of the Achilles recovery, and he had a shoulder injury supposedly midseason that kind of really held him up. But he looked like shit towards the end of the year. He could not. He was wildly ineffective. He threw a lot of interceptions. It was bad. So you're counting on a lot there. If you go down, now you're doing Russell Wilson. You hope that he has gas left in the tank, even though he's younger than both Stafford and Rodgers. Wilson has one thing different than both of those guys, and that is he is smaller. He's taken a lot of hits. He's run the ball around a lot. And there's something about his passing that has kind of come back a little bit, where he used to live off the rainbow throws, the big, deep, moon balls, as they would call them. And he'd move around. He's very hesitant when he moves around. He runs around. He doesn't take the deep shot. Sometimes he takes sacks for no reason. I don't want Russell Wilson, but I'll take him over Fields and some of the others, but that's my last option.
I don't know if this is accurate or not. So I was doing some digging around Russell Wilson with Steeler fans, and what I heard was Russell Wilson has largely abandoned the intermediate passing game. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's along the lines of what you just said. He's kind of not doing the rainbow, but it was basically he throws deep or he throws very short, but he doesn't throw a lot of intermediate stuff. And to me, that's kind of like a lot of Dable's offense. So, okay, and then we should talk about other elements of the team here. I think the quarterback they're going to get as a veteran is a placeholder, because I think right now, and again, this is what the noise that we're hearing right now, not BBI, but the national reporters, the local reporters, the Giants are going to draft Shedeur or they're going to draft Ward if they can get him. So if they do that, your first round draft pick is not going to want to sit on. They're not going to want to keep that guy on the bench. Maybe half the year again, like Eli. But so the guy you're signing is a placeholder. So I don't think we should lose too much sleep over. I hear what you're saying about they've got to win. But I think if you draft a quarterback in the first round, the pressure to win does diminish a little bit because there's a justification where you can say, well, we're grooming the new quarterback. We knew there were going to be growing pains, and that comes with it. San Fran.
So I took that from BBI. He posted that at 6:31.
Right.
San Fran.
All right, wait a sec. Oh, yeah. Well, they did, though.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. Now, we don't know, and I don't want to go through all that again.
No, we've done that on so many podcasts. We don't
know what was behind that or whatever. It can be debated elsewhere. All right. Let's for now, let's table the quarter where we're going to use 2 hours.
We got 20 minutes, solid minutes.
So for those in the chat right now, I'm gonna throw some things to you because we're gonna play. Help us kind of, direct where we go as we move forward. So next week is the week in between. It's the end of the combine. It's the week before the free agency period begins. What would you like to see from us? Do you want us to go back and break down free agency a little bit more? Would you like us to try to go back and do some, maybe get and I can't guarantee that I can do it, but I usually have somebody at the fingertips that I can reach out to. Do you want us to go back and kind of look at the Giants past, maybe get somebody into a former player? I kind of feel like we should stay focused on where we're going, and so just put in chat what you're interested in. Eric, what do you think? What should we focus on next week before we get to free agency?
Fun. I think this is going to be. Look, they're going to have to. I think they've telegraphed that they're going to make some moves here because their necks are on the line. So Neil just said free agency. I'm going to highlight this. Whoops. Oh, yeah. There you go. Free agency. So free agency is going to be coming up, and we're going to start hearing who they're meeting with, who they're interested, not meeting with, I can't do that, but who they're interested in. Like we did today with Pat Leonard, who said they were, they're poking around Murphy with the Vikes. So we're going to start hearing more and more of those names. My prediction hasn't changed since we did the free agency show. It was the quarterback position. Obviously, that's obvious. Right guard, unless they really think Neal can handle it. Evan Neal can handle it. And I don't know if I would go in there thinking that. Defensive tackle and corner. And I know John is a little less on defensive tackle because he wants to address it in the draft. But I think they need 2 defensive tackles. I think they need 2 corners. So I think they'll do draft and free agency with both. So next week, free agency is going to be great. And then when we start on the 10th, our live show on the 10th, that's going to be awesome. So for those that don't know, John and I are going live on the 10th at noon. We're going at noon. And so we'll react to everything that's happening, not just with the Giants, but with other teams. So they won't all be good because the Commanders have a lot of money to spend. So you're going to hear a lot of cursing. You're going to hear, oh, damn it, they got so-and-so. But we're going to start. I think John, don't you think we're going to hear a lot of news on the Giants right away?
I think right away we're going to hear some more things this coming week, as you've already said, and I know it can't really be finalized, but I suspect that we're really going to hear. I mean, the Jets did a favor to everybody by basically saying, we're cutting him. He's not going to be here next year. So it's not even in question. I think they did that intentionally to let him go ahead and talk to people, even though you're not supposed to, but the Jets already said, we're not keeping you. I think we're going to hear a few things. What's going to be interesting is I suspect usually trades for the first pick in the draft, though, tend to not happen until you get closer to the draft, because the team holding the pick want to hold that pick hostage like the Giants hold Mike Kafka. They want to hold it and hold it and hold it and make whoever else might want it. If you just trade it to the Giants right now, you have no idea who else might be interested. You can't build up that urgency to make the pick if they really want to. So I suspect we'll hear the Giants wanting it. Unless they give a knockout deal ahead of time, it's going to go right up to the draft.
Well, that's what I'm a little scared of, but you can see why they would. I was just going to ask you that before you said it. Do you think the deal gets done? But I mean, we could hear about a trade up to number 1 this week.
The only way I think it happens beforehand, and for some reason, this came to mind earlier. The Titans have already told Harold Landry, you can go ahead and see if you can find somebody to take you. If the Giants somehow offer picks and players, and one of those players is Kayvon Thibodeau, then I could see it possibly getting done. The Titans need to get younger on the defense if they're going to let Landry go. You would need a replacement. That would make sense. The Giants could then, now you're not, if you're the Titans, you're not forced to have to take Carter. I could take Hunter if he drops to 3. I could get Mason Graham if he's sitting there. I could do a lot of things at 3. So the Titans and the 1 to 3 is not a huge drop for the Titans. So I think if the Giants included a player, that might change it. If it's just
and that makes the decision that PR wise, that would look a lot better to the Giants if they were debating whether they wanted to do the 5th-year option on Thibodeau. So that way you could kind of say,
the problem is, though,
we didn't want to keep him, but we wanted to just play, that'd be a way.
But the problem is, once you do that, you've now opened a hole on your defense already. Whether you think he's great or not, you've added to another hole on the defense.
Yeah, and I want to address what Paul said here. This is a really good question, but this is where they look like they're going. If you listen to the rumors out there now coming from the national media, so it looks like they're interested in possibly investing major numbers. I mean, I guess it depends on what do you think Aaron Rodgers really wants. I mean, does Aaron Rodgers want to just play one more year? If not, maybe it's not going to be too bad. It just be a one-time investment.
At this point for next year, and again, those numbers are going to change, and the Giants are going to sign guys. New contracts are going to happen. So don't put this in stone. And this does not take into account what the cap will be next year.
Which is supposed to be, and we're supposed to have way more room next year.
And well, that's where I'm going with this. Is the Giants currently are projected at $150 million of cap space. So I suspect whatever they do with Rodgers they're basically gonna have one void year. So they'll spread the money out over those years. I just think everybody needs to understand there's 2 edicts at play at the same time.
Win.
Build the roster, and you've got to win. And win, I don't know what that means, whether John Mara has 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. I suspect it's closer to 22. It's got to be an 8, 9, 10-win team for Daboll to come back. Or they have to at least, if not, then it's got to be the rookie quarterback came in and led them to like 7, 8 wins, and they were close in other games, and they feel like it's building. If they lose a bunch of games, period, it's not going to matter. Daboll's gone. Shane's probably gone. And now you've wasted the rookie quarterback. So I think they've got to win games. And I just got a feeling if it's not Rodgers, it's probably Wilson, Cousins, and then it's whoever else in the middle if they don't get any of those guys.
So, but we're pretty confident they're going to draft a quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a matter of where. First round, yes, unless Rodgers comes on board and then they go, let's get best player available, Hunter, Carter, Graham, or trade down because they're planning like everybody wants them to. They're planning to maybe have more ammunition in 26. There's a big difference between saying, well, we'll just go and our first round pick next year will get us a quarterback. You don't know that. But if I have multiple first-round picks, I can package those and move up because there's probably going to be a team that doesn't play that well that has their future already. Not saying, please don't get pissed off and tell me I'm an idiot. I'm not saying Washington's going to regress badly, but I suspect that they won't have the same number of wins next year as they had this year. Teams know about them. They're going to have tape on Daniels. They're going to come at them a little differently. It's going to be a little harder to win some of those games. The Patriots, there's no guarantee they're going to win a lot of games, and they have their quarterback in Drake May. So those guys might, or somebody else who has a quarterback, Jacksonville still has Trevor Lawrence. They're probably not going quarterback even if they have a bad season. So that team might not, and you might have a chance to move up, but you need multiple picks to do that.
Did I see that New England said that Milton's on the block?
I saw that somebody said that they're shopping him. I'll say this again: who gives a shit about one game against a Bills team that was playing nobody at the end of the year? I'm not saying he's not but you can't count on that, for God's sake.
No, but again, desperate teams do desperate things.
Well, here's the thing, right? This is where fans get a little weird. There were a number of fans that were like, we should trade picks to Detroit to get Hendon Hooker, right? Do you remember hearing it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get Hendon Hooker. Detroit thought so much of Hendon Hooker that they got Teddy Bridgewater to stop coaching high school football at the end of the year to come in and be the backup quarterback in a playoff game. That's how confident they are in Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. Well, and Giants fans, God bless them, we're just tired of losing. We just want the team to just give us some hope. And again, I saw it on social media with the Matt Stafford pursuit. Some people didn't want him. Some people thought it was a good idea. And some people got caught up in the hype of we're in competition now with other teams, including the Rams, to get him. So there was the Rams, Raiders, Giants. And so there was we've seen this before too, where it's like, it almost becomes like a thing where you want to get the guy, even if you're not sure you really want the guy, if getting that guy is a good idea. So I saw it on Twitter today. I saw, people going, once he decided to stay, people were like, damn it. But these were some of the same people that originally were saying, I don't want him, but you get caught up in that. And part of that is now because the Giants stink on the playing field, the offseason is all we've got. So, and other Giants fans, which this is kind of sad, is we expect the worst now with this draft. We're in a good position. We have the 3rd overall pick. We're at the top of the 2nd round. We're at top of the 3rd round. We're going to be in a really good position to get some good players here, but no one trusts Shane and no one trusts Dable right now, and for good reason. So everyone's expecting the worst right now. I've seen people, and you've made the same argument, maybe it's a good idea if somebody else picks one of the quarterbacks and we end up with the other guy because the guy we want will probably be the wrong guy. You've made that point before.
Well, too, yeah, absolutely. Like I point back to 1981. We don't know that the Giants, no one's ever come out and said, we don't know that if the Saints took LT, we might have taken George Rodgers.
Giants, I've never seen if we were.
No one said that. No matter what, we were going. It wasn't the scene from Draft Day where it was like Vontae Day. No matter what, nobody was saying it was LT. No matter what,
right?
George Rodgers goes to the Saints. The Giants take LT, and history is made. The Giants didn't draft Eli Manning. The Chargers did. The Giants could have very easily, by the way, not traded any freaking picks and just taken Ben Roethlisberger. And who knows what that might have been. Again, I'm fine that it was Eli. One of my son's middle names is Eli because of Eli Manning.
We wouldn't have been as rapey a team.
Rapist wit. I think it was. I'll take the rapist for 400. I think it's therapist. Oh, whatever. So, it's. I'll say this. There was a report out though that says there's people within the Giants organization that have Shadur Sanders rated ahead of Cam Ward. I don't know if that's true or if that's just kind of being said. Somebody else throws it out there to kind of put it. But I'll say this, and you tell me your opinion. If it's not true, the Giants have given the biggest smokescreen I have seen in forever because they have gone out of their way to go to Colorado multiple times.
Yeah, I have no problem. No one should with them. If this is a smokescreen, this is fantastic. So if they really like Cam Ward, they're doing a fantastic job. So that might be what they're doing. And they kind of did that a little bit last year. We've talked about it before. Even McCarthy thought he was getting drafted by the Giants.
What do you make of the report that Joe Shane supposedly thought behind the scenes that McCarthy couldn't handle the New York media.
Well, that was based on an interview he gave, wasn't it? That someone was reading into it. So it's kind of like that thing we were just talking about something else where somebody was reading into another. I wish I remember what the comment was, but we have to be a little bit careful that some of these reporters are reading a little bit too much into
extrapolating what they think. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was the Neal comment. It was the Evan Neal. So somebody was, and I read, they took the comment and said that based on that comment, it meant that the Giants weren't going to try Evan Neal at guard. That's not what they said. So, but that's what was reported. So we have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, but this comment was specific about McCarthy. It said that Joe Schoen said.
Yes.
And I don't remember hearing him ever say that. So who's leaking this? Because that sounds really stupid. If that's where I don't think you can handle the New York market. How the hell would you know that? I mean, playing for Michigan isn't exactly like, it's not like you're playing for Idaho. That's a pretty and you played for a guy who played in the NFL, by the way. I mean, did you ask Jim Harbaugh if he could handle the
Well, it
NFL?
depends on whether you think there's a lot of pressure on you if you're in the national championship game. I mean, so.
Right. Yeah, but he was coming in. But if you drafted him, he would have been backing up freaking Daniel Jones. I mean, how is he not able to handle the pressure per se?
There was, I don't know. I want your reaction on this. So did you watch Shane's presser or not yet?
Yes.
Okay. Did you think he was a little bit defensive when one of the reporters asked him about his son knowing that Jaden Daniels was good? Because he said something to the effect like, "Well, I know where he got that idea from." It was almost like he was telling the reporters, "Well, my son thought that only because I told him to say that."
I kind of took that. Maybe I'm reading into it. I kind of took that as acknowledgement that was sort of a Hard Knocks thing, that he was kind of fed to say something like that. And it's really hard to say, again, here I am.
I took it as him being really defensive, saying hey, my son thinks that because I told him that, and that's why he thought that. So. Here's
the thing about communication, right? It's all about the receiver. It's all about your mindset. Your mindset, right. And I'm not accusing you or blaming you. Your mindset.
Sounds like you are, John.
No. I'm actually gonna kind of hit myself on that one. But I guess I'm hitting you at the same time. But your mindset is to be skeptical of what he's. That was from earlier, though. of what he's saying. Where I feel like I've been kind of on the Shane bandwagon versus Daboll. So I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it maybe from that mindset. So it could go either way. I just kind of took it that was kind of a manufactured sort of thing. I don't know. It was funny, though, overall, because I'm thinking at this point, I wish we had listened to your kid. But getting up to that spot was impossible. It's yes, fine. Blame.
One thing I do notice is Shane still gets very nervous in these press conferences. He was sweating up a storm again. I don't know if you've noticed that he sweats like crazy when he's in a press conference.
At this point, let's just have, for shits and giggles, so we can come back to this. So let's say February 28th at 7:57 p.m.
Oh yeah.
Give me the percentage chance that Shane comes back for 2026.
Oh, I think Mara does not want to get rid of him. I think in order for that to happen, it would have to be a train wreck. It would have to be. Don't you think, John? It would have to be like a nightmare season, right?
I would agree. I would say it's probably. I would say right now he's 60% coming back, assuming he gets his quarterback. If he gets a young quarterback and he looks even decent in the preseason, I'm not even talking regular season, then I think Shane's coming back.
No,
what about Daboll, though? What about Daboll?
I don't think he's going to survive. And I think part of it's the schedule. I think his best chance is if they do draft a quarterback in the first round and that quarterback shows enough. He doesn't have to win. If the quarterback shows enough, like the Eli Manning season a little bit, even Eli was really so bad in 2004, his rookie year. If he's better than Eli, believe it or not, if he shows enough flashes where they can see they got the guy and the guy's improving because of the coaching he's getting, then I think Dable can come back because he'll say, we're on the right path. We're on the right track. I can see that. And that's what I was saying earlier, that in a way, having the rookie first rounder actually is a protection for him a little bit. If they had signed Matthew Stafford and didn't draft a first round draft pick at quarterback, and then say they got Carter and they still won 3 or 4 games, he's gone. I mean, he would have been gone.
So who do you think as we close? I mean, we can go a little over.
Yeah, we can go a little over.
Yeah. So who do you think the edict to win was more on, Shane or Daboll? I personally think it's Daboll. I think Shane could be okay if his draft is okay and the players are starting to look good. I think they'll be okay with Shane. Daboll, to me, has got to win. And then with that question, how many wins?
I agree. John Mara believes in this magical process that Shane has put in place. And I think what he means by that is they've revamped the coach, the scouting system, the scouting staff, the technology, everything. So they brought in all these new different people, and they did. It's not just the scouts, but it's the middle management, the people like the Dennis Hickeys that they brought in, the Brandon Browns and all that. So when he says, Mara talks about the process, I think Mara's talking about the fact that they've got this new structure in place. I'm not defending the structure. I'm just saying, so think of yourself if you're in charge of a new company, or an existing company, but you bring in all these new people, and all these new people set up this entire new operation, and you invest a lot of money and a lot of time and effort in setting up this new operation. You think it's going to work, but you think you need more time. That's where I think Mara, right or wrong, is thinking that we've made all these changes. It hasn't borne fruit yet, but I think I don't think he wants to blow that up. But the easiest thing to blow up is firing the head coach. So I agree with you. I think by far, and I think that's based also on what just almost happened. I think Daboll almost got fired, don't you? I mean, I
do. I think, though, I suspect, as I said and you said, but I mean, we were talking about it early in the season, there was something very weird about the way he would respond to certain things. And it was almost like they knew they had to do one thing in particular. They had to stay with it for a certain amount of time. And whatever happens, and you're guaranteed of coming back. But I think the guarantee of coming back started to fade with the banners being flown over. Now, I know Mara supposedly later said, I'm not going to be mob mentality. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's just being an asshole. I'll give him
it for spite.
But I'll give him credit for this. I don't want you making decisions just because fans just scream at you and doing shit, or you're going to randomly do stuff every year. That's a problem. Because you and I both know 2007, midway through the season, people wanted Eli gone. 4 interceptions against the Vikings. I believe 3 of them went returned for touchdowns. They wanted him gone. Giants win a Super Bowl at the end of that year. If you're reactionary, you let other people influence you. What you got to have is guts, but that's the problem. I don't think he has any fucking guts. I think he has a heart for the Giants, but no instinct.
Oh, I don't think it's a guts thing. I think he's stupid. I honestly.
Yeah, I'm still trying to interview the guy, so stop doing it.
I don't think they're very bright, John. I
know.
Look, I understand.
I reached out to them again today, by the way, trying to get them to come on.
Yeah,
I know.
We're in Carl Banks. We were trying to get Carl.
No, I literally reached out through the channels to try to get John Mara.
I'd like to get John Schmelk on here, but anyway, believe it or not, we had Jerry Reese back in the days. That was a long time ago.
In case people have forgotten, real quick, we legitimately interviewed Jerry Reese on the show. The Giants set it up for us. We interviewed him. We had him for probably about 20 minutes or so. It was fine. It wasn't overly illuminating, but it was great for us to be able to talk to him.
Yeah.
So yes, we did talk to the general manager of the Giants.
But I think Where was I going with this before that?
I'm so sorry.
Comment about.
Well, you said he was stupid, then you wanted Schmelk, and then.
How did you set me up on this again? What was the setup? What was the last question you asked?
Dude, I've gone through both.
Does anyone remember where we were at?
I've gone through both my beers. I said a lot. I'm not really sure.
Oh wait, we were talking about
the number of wins and yes.
So I think. I think Mara wants to see them score more than 15.
I know. How embarrassing is that, by the way? I mean, for God's sakes, in a league where you don't even emphasize defense anymore, you can't even touch the receivers as they go down the field. We can't even get more than 15 points in a game. So
well, that was what was so stunning, was just the offensive ineptitude on a weekly basis, and it got worse. And it was like we were having trouble scoring 17 points, and then it was 14 points, and it was 10, and it was 7, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So, and we've talked about it before, that the epitome of Daniel Jones's career was the flea flicker, where he missed. He had two guys wide open way downfield, and he took the sack, and that was like, all right, we're done. We're done with this. So, all right, I would love to have Mara Life show. Yeah, look, the thing with Mara is this: I know his heart is in the right place. I know what the thing I was going to say, John. I know what you were getting at with, you don't want fans to be overly reactive. You want them to be overly reactive to what fans are saying. But just remember, when Joe Judge was here, the original plan was to let Gettleman retire, promote Abrams as general manager, and keep Joe Judge. And that was reported. They wanted to keep Joe Judge, and they wanted Abrams to become Gettleman's replacement. They couldn't do that because of the way that nightmare scenario that season ended. They had the two meltdown press conferences. You had the offensive snaps of the quarterback sneak offense, and then you had again. I'm going to do this because I'm proud of my daughter. She made the clown.
Oh my God, that might have changed the direction of the Giants.
The only reason I think that is because one of his meltdown press conferences, he said, "We're not clowns." I'm like, holy shit.
Well, what you meant was you don't have any makeup on. You were clowns. There was no doubt about it. So, I mean, when we call quarterback sneak on second down in our own end, you're a clown show.
And I know people think I'm really, really harsh on Mara, and I am. I freely admit it. But again, when you keep changing general managers, you keep changing head coaches, you keep firing front office personnel, scouts, people that direct the thing, and you keep firing everybody, but the only thing that stays the same is the owner. I mean, at some point you've got to point your finger at the owner, and then he keeps butting into these personnel decisions. And I get it. He owns a team. He's entitled to do that. And I've made this analogy before over and over again, but I'm a homeowner, and if I try to fix my plumbing and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and I've got a leak and the water's rising, I get a plumber, a professional, and I stand back and let them handle it. And I still don't know, and we don't know, who made the call to bring back Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley in that offseason.
Don't get me
and
started.
I know how you feel. You think it was the ownership. I don't know if it was that, but that stinks of ownership involvement there. And that's what bothers me, is everything that we're going through right now goes back to that moment in 2023, in March of 2023, where they said they didn't allow Barkley to walk, and they re-signed Daniel Jones. Because a year later, what do? They let Barkley walk, and Daniel Jones is still here.
Right.
And so it's just like, the entire thing's been mismanaged. But why did they do what they did? And I get it. We've had people like Gary and others say, how the hell could the Giants, PR-wise, have not re-signed Daniel Jones after a playoff season? My argument would have been, they had him for a full year. They knew what he could and could not do. They
should have franchise tagged him.
Right. I would have franchised Daniel Jones and let Barkley. And I said before, this isn't hindsight, they should have traded Barkley at the trade deadline in 2023. They should have. Then that way you would have kept them away from whatever teams you wanted to keep them away from. So
yeah, without a doubt. Welcome to Lauren, who's watching because her husband's making her watch. So thank you, appreciate it.
But I think that's the second person because we had somebody else. Then we have somebody else tweet at us or let us know that their husband made them watch the show. I think we did. So
well, and then we had somebody else who said that their wife ran upstairs and was probably on the phone with her sister complaining about that. I'll say that there's plenty of time. Like I'll talk to my wife and I know like she's like looking at me and we're talking and whatever, and I'm like, you didn't hear a word that I just I'm like, I know you didn't hear, because you'll be like, no, I did, but I just don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I appreciate it. I appreciate you hanging in there. So for everybody who's been hanging in, I know we're going a little bit longer, and that's fine. We set the time and whatever. So
Dave R said I'd take Rodgers in a word too.
Yeah. See, I think, quite frankly, I don't want to get my hopes up about the Rodgers thing because I was all in on the Stafford thing. And for those, what was it? Is it Big Blue Huddle? Is that the one?
Oh, don't get me started on that.
So I'm just going to say, this is, I want, first off, since only you know what I'm about to talk about. Since I defended you on something else, you can defend me later on this. Fuck you, Huddle. First off, Eric and I talked. I was about to bring up on a show in the fall that Stafford was going to be a guy I was interested. Eric's like, I've had people tell me the Giants have reached out to Stafford, but we couldn't say him by name. So we didn't. We talked about it. We did drop his name towards the end of the year when we started talking about, listen, we know that the Giants supposedly reached out. Then we heard that they were still interested. And that was confirmed by multiple media people. So I'm not sure what made up BBI sources, you ass, but that's cool.
I'm sure the guys that read his website are fantastic. Giants fans are mostly fantastic people. This is not directed at anyone who frequents that website, but I don't know what the owner of that website or whoever controls that Twitter account was saying. They were basically saying,
your insiders are bullshit.
Were wrong because we didn't acquire.
No.
Stafford.
That you're being nice. That's not what he said. These made up insiders with their bullshit.
Yeah.
That's basically what he was saying. And he goes, and anybody who follows that, and like somehow,
but it happened. That's the thing. The Giants tried to trade for them. That's what I tried to tell the guys.
By the way, the impression was like BBI created this thing that the national media took off running with. If that's the case,
Albert Breer is not paying attention to
Eric
me.
and I can just stop doing anything else.
He's not paying attention to me. I mean,
we'll just do this from now on. I can quit my job because apparently the national media is just hanging on every word that we say. No, it was legit and it was true, and it became a huge story because it was. Yes, the Rams ultimately played it to get what they wanted to accomplish, but there was a possibility that was not going to happen. And if the numbers were too high for the Rams, they were then going to take the compensation from either the Raiders or the Giants. That's not false. The Giants were interested, and they were interested in Stafford back at the trading deadline, but the goddamn Minnesota Vikings couldn't beat the Rams that night, and we got stuck with
Daniel Jones. We don't know if they really would have traded, but look, nothing we reported was incorrect. The Giants tried to trade for Matthew Stafford last October, and they tried to trade for him now. That's all I reported, and that's what happened. And everybody knows that's what happened. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. Guy or gal, whoever it is. I have no idea whoever it is. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Dave R., my wife wants you guys to finish so I can.
Yeah, we'll get off in a second here. So I want to say this, and I've said it before. I hear all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I've heard things that ended up being true. I've heard things that ended up not being true. All I can tell you is when I'm told something and I'm told I can say it, I will say it. When I'm told I can't say it, my reaction is like, why the hell are you telling me? I think it's cool because then I know, but I'm like, well, why are you telling me if I can't tell anyone? But I don't do that if somebody tells me not to do that. But some of the things that happen, some of the things I'm told happen, and some don't. And when they don't happen, sometimes it's because it was BS, or sometimes there was a thing and it just fell through. So I heard last year they were trying to trade up for Derek May, and I reported that. And again, that was kind of early in the process. What I did hear that ended up being bunk was a couple of people telling me it was a done deal. And it wasn't a done deal, obviously. So that's where I tend to be a little bit more careful or try to be more careful is because I don't want to have that kind of egg on my face. So when somebody says if somebody had told me Matthew Stafford to the Giants was a done deal yesterday, I would not have said anything unless I had 2 or 3 people tell me the same thing, because I got burned on the May thing when 2 people told me that. So I would have to have more confirmation. But if it happens, if it sounds too good to be true, I don't tend to say anything.
Right. So next week we'll do, I think, probably 2 shows. I don't know if they'll be live. We might do one live. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of fun. But we will definitely be live March 10th at noon. Now, I don't expect there'll be tons of people, but maybe there will be because whatever, but it still gets recorded. It's up there later. But and Eric and I have decided we're going to play it by ear that day about how long we go there, but we will be prepared as any news breaks to jump on.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. Do me a favor, please. If you have not subscribed, could you please? We need to get to 1,000, and that opens the door for us to do other stuff. So it would be awesome if you could. But also because you will be notified when we go live. We might not be able to tell you if a breaking news happens, we got to just jump on. So I might not have time to tell Eric, and Eric might not have time to post it on the site. We're just going to jump and go.
Yeah, we might have like 4 people watching.
But if you're subscribed, you'll get those notifications. I really appreciate it.
Or they have to click on the notification bell to do that, right? Or no?
I
don't know. That I don't know.
Do both. Who cares?
So,
just do both. But if you could subscribe, that would be awesome. Okay. But March 10th at noon, we will be live. But next week, we're going to do a couple. Sounds like you guys want us to focus on free agency. We will. We'll get some more rumors. There's going to be more things that come out from the combine. There will be things like medicals that come out usually a little bit later. So we'll hear about what's going on there. I'm looking forward to, I hate to say it, because now we've become Washington from years ago. We're the off-season kings now, but that's kind of what we got to look for. Things won't change until we change. So let's start in the off-season.
Well, and I want to end on a positive note. The Giants still can fix this. They could fix this. They get the right quarterback, and say they get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and they light it up. It's not impossible. They don't have to take us to the playoffs next year.
That's true.
We just need to know we got the guy.
And don't discount that we might draft 2.
Yes.
We might, because we technically the only guy on the roster right now who's the quarterback is Tommy DeVito, and I'm pretty sure the Giants aren't hoping that he's going to be the 3rd quarterback.
No, and Joe Shane said over and over and over again this week, we have one guy where he said we need quarterbacks. So they're going to get we're going to have a new quarterback in the next 10 days, 10 to 12 days. The Giants are going to have a new starting quarterback in the next 10 to 12 days. So John and I are going to jump on as soon as we know who it is. So that's why you need to hit the.
And if something weird happens next week, if for some reason some breaking news happens, we'll try to get on when we can. I do have a day job that does make it a little bit harder, but
come on,
we'll go back to time. I wish I didn't. I would like to be the GM of the New York Giants is what I would really like to do. I'll guarantee you, if I was GM of the New York Giants, we would turn this shit around pretty fast. But I'm just saying. Anyway, so thank you for watching, listening, however you do this. If you only caught a part of it, you can again, the recording pieces it'll be on YouTube for sure. I don't know if I'll be able to put it on onto Spotify or not for the live shows, but it'll definitely be on YouTube. So subscribe, and we'll be back again real soon. Appreciate it, everybody, and have a great weekend.